Okay, so you've already gone through the slides, and now we're going to go ahead and practice writing some functions using date objects. So on our very first time with JavaScript, we played around with a date object. Um, Date is a type of object that is already stored within your browser, within your computer. So um, date objects have several different characteristics. They have um, a year, a month, a day, the hours, minutes, and seconds, milliseconds. Okay, so that's all you need to know for now. That date objects are something that are already defined. They also have functions that are already defined for that particular object that we will use. So basic overview, but you'll see it in practice as we work through this example. Okay, so we're going to do this in 3 parts. Okay, so just so we see where we're at right now, let's do file. Okay, it's already saved. And I'm going to view in browser, preview it, and I just have a blue background with some text at the top that says playing with functions. Okay, so as you can see in my code, I've written some CSS in the top, so you can bring in an internal style tag. You could link to an external style sheet if you wanted, but to make our page look kind of nice. All right, cool. So the first thing that we are going to do, so you'll see that I have gone ahead and divided this code into 3 parts. It'll be 3 different videos, and we'll work through it together. So the first part is to write a function called format date, whose purpose is to properly format today's date and then add the string to the document. Okay, so we are going to define a function. So notice we are within the script tags. We're going to say function format date, right, using those parentheses. And the first thing we're going to do, so this function, good practice, is to go ahead and write yourself some comments of what you want the function to do before you write the code of the function. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a date object representing this moment in time and store it as a variable. Okay. All right. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to format the info about the day. And then finally, we are going to insert the formatted string into our document. Okay? All right. Okay, so creating a date object representing this moment in time and storing it as a variable. In order to do that, we are going to do var dateObj equals new date. Okay, so we talked about this before. DateObj, as you'll see here, because it's defined within this function, dateObj, this variable, is a local variable. We cannot access it inside the script outside of this function. Okay, cool. So part 1 is done. We've created a date object. It's going to represent this moment in time because any date object that we create that doesn't have any arguments corresponds to the exact date at which the program or the function is run, and then we're going to store it as a variable. Okay, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to create 4 basically different parts in order to be able to format the information. So 4 different variables. We're going to say var the date equals dateObj dot get date. Okay. So we are calling dateObj, this new date object, and we are getting the date from it. So getting the date from it is going to get the full date from that object. Okay, then we're going to do var the month, and we're going to do dateObj dot get month. And an important thing with this is that date objects have a month that corresponds to whatever month of the year it is. So January actually starts with 0, right? So thinking about how we define the decimal number system, January is 0, February is 1, etc. And so in order for this to correspond to what we know, we need to add 1 to it, okay? So I'll put a note in there for us, add 1 because January is 0. All right? Okay, so one thing to draw your attention to, get date and get month are already defined functions that work for date objects, okay? So we are calling functions already within the format date function that we're writing. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we are going to do var the year equals date obj dot get full year. And then we're going to say var current date equals the month plus a slash plus the date plus another slash plus the year. Okay, so current date is a string, right? And it's formatted with the month slash the date slash the year. We are doing what is called string concatenation, if you remember that from before. And so now we have a current date that is a string, and it is constructed with the month, the date, and the year. Okay. And then the last thing we're going to do is we are going to insert this string into our document. So we are going to do document.getElement by ID. And notice up here, we have a div that we've specified with test ID. So we are going to do test ID dot inner HTML equals current date. Okay, so with this function, all right, we've created a new date, and then we have taken from that date the day, or the date, the month, we've added 1 to it because January is 0, and then the year. And then we've got those 3 pieces of information, those 3 strings, and we've concatenated them together so they're formatted with the month slash the date slash the year. And then we've taken that string and we have inserted it into our HTML by finding the div labeled test ID and adding it to that HTML. So let's see what happens. Let's save it, and we will browser preview it. What did we forget to do? We forgot to call the function. So let's go ahead and call it. So we defined our function, right? Function format date. And then we have to actually call the function. So there it is, and it has formatted the date. Okay, so your function just written is useless. Okay, must call the function. So we can write it, but if we don't tell our program to run it, it doesn't matter. Okay, so there we go, and we have pasted it to the page. So save that. Make sure your code matches my code, and pause here, check it, and then you can move on to our next video. Okay?